Okay. Say hello. Okay, so I'm going to talk to you guys about hydraulic fracturing, and I don't know if anybody here keeps up with. I'm kind of a science nerd and keep up with politics a little bit, but hydraulic fracturing is a really hot button issue with people right now, especially people who live on top of these rock formations, shale rock formations, where the gas is stored for a lot of natural gas, actually, like in Pennsylvania, in northern Pennsylvania, part of New York, and down in the Appalachian Mountains, there's almost 500 billion cubic feet, I believe, 500 trillion. There's a lot of gas stored in this shale rock formation. Thousands of feet. We're talking like 4,000 to 8,000 feet below the ground, where all this gas is stored. And I mean, as Americans, we love fossil fuels. We use almost 23 trillion cubic feet of fossil fuels every year. And up until about 10 to 12 years ago, the kind of the shale rock formations that hold this natural gas was only responsible for about 2% of our gas production. And now, due to some technologies that I'll talk about in a minute, we're up to almost 50%. Analysts predict that by 2035, 50% of our domestic natural gas will be produced in our country out of these shale rock formations, tight formations. Which if you look into it farther, there's a lot of complaints and people who live on these areas, their water faucets catching on fire and everything because methane gets in the groundwater. I'm not going to go into that. I'm just going to explain the process. Just so you guys can be a little bit more educated on that. So conventional gas wells, those are easy. You just drill a hole straight down, and the gas comes up to your hole and it comes right out the top, and it's easy. But shale gas isn't that way. The shale formation is the rock itself is only about 100 feet thick at any given point. And it's really big. We're talking like covers 3-4 states, and so. So the gas companies like Halliburton and Chesapeake and they'll say that this rock is nearly impermeable, like nothing can pass through it. It's not exactly true. Shale rock is actually rocks that they have natural fractures in them, so they're really tight together. So not a whole lot of stuff can pass through. We're talking like molecules are getting in, but over the years they worked their way up in there. So that's how the gas got into these cracks in the first place. So the rock itself doesn't let stuff come through, but it's full of these cracks all through. And if you've ever seen a shale formation, like at a bluff or something, that comes out, it actually looks like little squares, like tiles. These natural fractures in there. So hydraulic fracturing is actually taking. This is in the ground, so we're talking 8,000 feet down, but they're going to take that rock and they're going to split those cracks open so the gas can flow out more easily. So conventional drilling, then, you'd say if you're going to drill a conventional well there, you drill straight down 8,000 feet into this rock, and you try to hit it. It's only at 100 feet deep, so you got to be lucky. And then you're only going to get an area, because it's got to come out of these little cracks, so you're only going to get the gas that's right around your hole. It doesn't make sense. And so there was 4 technologies that have been developed since 1997 was the first one they started using, or 96, I guess, I'm sorry, that allows for the gas to be pulled out of these rock formations. The first one is directional drilling or deviated wellbore. So now what can happen, they started using this in 2002, it allows for maximum access to the production zone, right? So instead of drilling a hole straight down, we're going to drill a hole 7,000 feet down, and then we're going to start to turn the well, and we're actually going to go lateral for miles. We're going to 1 to 2 miles. The longest wells right now are almost 2 miles long, and so that way, you're in that 100 feet, but you're that for 2 miles, so it makes a lot more sense. You can get a lot more production that way, and they can actually now do seismic tests and stuff like that, so they can actually put the well perpendicular to the natural cracks. So when you fracture it, blow it up, which I'll talk about in a minute, it actually get the best bang for your buck. You get the most gas coming out of there as possible. So when they, now we'll talk about that. Okay, the second technology is high fluid volumes. And this is not only transportation, but also disposal and injection. So so during a hydraulic fracture, and we'll talk about in a minute, after the hole is dug, we're going to pump water down there, and the water and sand and some other chemicals, but pump water down there in super high volumes, millions of gallons, and we're going to use that to pry the rock apart. And then the sand is going to go down there and hold those rocks open so the gas can come out. But up until less than 10 years ago, we didn't have the technology to get that much water, millions of gallons of water in one place, and then have the horsepower to push it down, almost 3 mile, 4 mile stretch of pipe that's only 4 to 6 inches around. So the other technology that made that happen is they call it slick water. This is chemical compounds that you add to water to actually lubricate the water. Like it lubricates the water in the pipe, so like it actually will force the water, or allow the water to go all the way to the end of the pipe, reducing friction, allowing it to reach where you want it to go, and it actually lubricates the water molecules with themselves. It actually changes the chemical makeup of the water. And they add the chemicals to the water. They call it frac fluid. It also is called production fluid, or production water, produced water. There's lots of names for it, and the names, it's all the same stuff, but the names for it actually determine how it can be disposed of, which is part of the reason why there's some turmoil about that with local governments. But the slick water and the chemicals, some people claim, like the movie Gasland claims, 596 different chemicals in the frac fluid. It's not necessarily true. There's chemicals that have to be there. There has to be a surfactant and an acid, which help to break the rocks up and clear away the cracks once they've been blasted open. There has to be a proppant, which a lot of times is sand. They also use synthetic material. I'm getting way too long here, I'm sorry. And antimicrobial agents to get the gunk out. And only 0.1 to 0.5% of the fluid is made of these chemicals. But when we're talking up to 8 million gallons of water, that's 40,000 gallons of chemicals that are being pumped down these wells and coming back up on the ground. And then the last technology is multi-well pads. They were developed in 2007, which means they can drill a well here and go east or northeast or whatever, so it's perpendicular, and they can go 50 feet away and drill west. So going both ways along the shale, because the shale's everywhere, the gas is everywhere, and they want to get it out of the ground. And it makes more sense because each well costs $4.5 million to drill, and so they don't want to have to move all their stuff all the time. If you bring in, as we'll see, it was like 1,400 truckloads of stuff for just one drill pad. So if they can keep those, take it all to one place, they only have to make one road, and they can get 8 wells in one spot. That's better for them. So they start by identifying the areas to drill, and then leasing the land from landowners. So they go with a contract and they say, I want to drill here, and we're the only ones that can drill here, and that kind of stuff. And they sign how many wells they can drill and everything. But a lot of landowners are not up on reading the contract, so they don't know what they're signing, but they just know that they're getting a lot of money right off the bat before the groundwater spoils and they can't figure it out. But so yeah, the drilling pads, 1,400 trucks. A lot of that's just hauling in the water. Like I said, we start drilling. They drill down like a normal well. They get through the groundwater, and then they have to pour cement. So they pour a casing around the pipe then to protect the groundwater supposedly, and then they start drilling again. They drill through their cement all the way down, and then right above the shale they turn and they drill for miles. And then when they're done, they pour more cement. And then after that, we put a frac gun down, and Schlumberger, which is another company that develops technology for the oil companies, they have perforating guns on their website. We actually see them, but they're 20 to 40 feet long, depending on the accessories they add to them. But the perforating gun usually has, it's what it is shaped charges, and they blast once they get down in the pipe, then they blast open holes so the water can go through. And so they do that, and then they pull the perforating gun out. They blow usually like 500,000 gallons of water down one of these wells, and that will crack the stone and then get into those natural cracks, prop them open. And they do that all along that 2 miles of pipe. And so, but after each time, so they blast, 20, 40 feet section, and blow it open, and then they, after that's done, water's pumping out, and then they put the perforating gun down again, but this time it has a cap on the end, and it caps off that front part that they just did, so they can do the next part. They don't need as much water, but it's still a lot. And 15-50% of the water produced comes back to the surface, and as they show in Gasland, that water is actually most of the time taken to open air pits where they blow it up into the air so it can evaporate. So all those chemicals are getting out into the environment, which is another what the environmental people are having problems with. So once they're all done fracking the well, they drill out all the plugs, and then the gas starts to come out. And yeah. So Professor Tony Ingraffia actually has said a lot about fracking, and his biggest problem with it is once the well is fracked, it's highly unpredictable. They don't know how, all the computer simulations in the world cannot predict how it's going to work. So, you blast it and then pump the water down, and you never know how it's going to go. So, yeah, it's can be scary. But I guess that's all I'm going to do because I've been talking for way too long. So, thanks for listening.